Thank you. I thought I would get something more official. We're going to do that. Okay, can I get a motion to reconvene to public session?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Over there. My apologies to everyone who's here for us coming out a little bit late. We try not to do that, and unfortunately tonight we did just run a little bit over for our closed session, so my apologies to everyone waiting. Linda, are there any other communications other than what's on the agenda?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Let's see. So for number 8, we have some corrections to the minutes for the October 16th, 2017 meeting. Does anybody have any questions about those corrections? No? And then also number 9, we have corrections to the December 18th, 2017 meeting that are in bold. Does anybody have any questions or concerns there? No? Okay. And then 10, we have the approval of our minutes from the public workshop and executive session from December 11th, 2017. The regular public as corrected and executive session December 18th, 2017, and the regular public reorganization and executive sessions from January 3rd, 2018. Anybody have any questions or concerns with those minutes?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. So then I would like to move all 3 of those together, if I could. I'd like to move 8, 9, and 10, or could I ask someone else to move 8, 9, and 10?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? No. Seeing none, Linda, could we please get a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Samarusti?
Yes?
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Yes.
Ms. Pietrobono?
Yes.
Mr. Rosales?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So that brings us to our student representative report.
So good evening, everyone. We start with Irving. So, and this is from the new Irving acting principal, Ms. McNally. So that was our first report from her. So we're really excited to hear from her. So they celebrated their Teacher of the Year, Rebecca Fittipaldi, and Educational Services Professional Stephen Connors at a staff breakfast. Congratulations to these 2 very deserving individuals. And on February 7th, Irving will be taking part in Global School Play Day. The premise of this day is for the students and adults to do just that, play. No screens, no structure, just creativity and imagination. This day allows for children to experience the benefit of play, and Irving cannot wait to make this an annual day of fun for all.
At Bartle, they just held their first ever Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. They had nearly 100 people and volunteers in attendance. Bartle will also be engaging in its 2nd annual Staff versus Students Fitness Challenge this week. And students won last year, and they are looking to repeat. Bartle also held its 3rd annual Epic Game Day. There were a record number of students in attendance, and the students had a great time. And Bartle also held its first Epic Family Math Night, and there were over 100 parents and students in attendance to that as well. And the Bartle Winter Concert in 2017 was amazing and served as tribute to Bartle's birthday, celebrating 50 years of educational excellence. And Bartle will also be hosting Chinese exchange students in late January, early February.
We don't have a report from the middle school this evening. In terms of the high school, a few weeks ago, the high school welcomed the new year with an assembly. So we focused on 4 aspects of discipline: phone usage, chronic lateness, students wandering in the hallways, and profanity that the faculty and administration agreed required special attention. So following the assembly, this was right after break, we observed various conversations among students about the 4 topics, as well as conversations between teachers and students. I think it was a unique incidence where we came away from an assembly actually talking about what had happened in the assembly. as students, we're interested to see whether or not there will actually be an impact in behavior in the coming months. One of the focuses of this was whether or not the rules will be universally enforced, and well, the students are looking forward to see whether or not that will happen, interested in to see whether or not that will happen.
DECA competed last week at the NJ regional competition at Keene University. They had 42 finalists that will advance to the state competition in February, including 2 of our GLOW students. And the club was also awarded gold status for chapter and membership campaign, for chapter and membership campaign. And they are currently waiting for notification as to whether the club will be awarded gold internationally for entrepreneurship. And 3 students prepared a 60-page report about the DECA store for the national competition.
The Global Awareness Group has raised over $300 for their Heifer International campaign. The group has exceeded their $150 goal by, well, 100%.
Next week is midterms week at the high school as well, and students are currently studying hard for their exams and looking forward to the next semester.
And finally, at the state relay championships this Saturday, the girls winter track team placed first in the 4x400 meter, second in the distance medley, and fifth in the 4x800. So that's really exciting for our girls winter track team.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much, ladies. Did anybody have any questions for the students today?
I just have one question. You were talking about the chronic lateness was part of the assembly, so it made me think about, I don't have direct knowledge of this, but is it true at the high school that if you are absent and you don't have a doctor's note, even for one day, then that counts as an unexcused absence? Do you know?
I mean, any absence from school is unexcused unless you have a like a doctor's note or, in our case, a letter from a college that you were visiting. You know, that's a common reason for students to be absent. But other than that, to the best of my knowledge, that counts as unexcused.
Yeah, and you need a doctor's note.
You need a doctor's note. A parent note does not suffice for one day of illness.
I believe unless it's for a family emergency or like some kind of death, then no, I don't believe so.
And I don't think that's our policy. I think that's state policy.
Yeah.
That's
I
correct.
mean, when I was looking at that on the state report cards, I mean, it was like,
No, because I looked at other townships, high school policies, and that is not an unexcused absence, a parent note. So you have to phone in to the attendance office and then send a parent note. It doesn't require a doctor note, it requires a parent note. So if the parent note is missing, then that would count as an unexcused absence, but not requiring a doctor's note.
Let me check, maybe we can review that in policy committee. If
Okay.
it's a state,
What's the difference between excused and unexcused in terms of, I mean, if a child is absent from school, he's absent, whether, I mean, what?
Well, it's important information because we
Oh,
receive.
as a matter of information, but it's not okay to be absent on either way, right?
I mean, it could interfere with your ability to graduate, right, if it was that
Right.
extreme.
Either way,
Right, right.
either way,
Right.
right,
Right.
okay.
On February 12th, I'm going to make a presentation to the board and the community about the performance report, but I'm going to hone in on the chronic absenteeism rate at the high school, which is 46%. Yeah, it's very high, and I'm as concerned, Mr. Lasser is concerned, as I'm sure the community is. We've actually seen these rates increase over the last 3 years. So it's not a shock to me that it's what it is, but it's upsetting.
Yeah.
So I promise to go over all the rules, regs, and whatnot. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I would just add that of the 4 things that they were focusing on when we talk about chronic tardiness, it's not specifically about absence, it's about being late to school, which is something that, like Dr. Shaler said, is like almost half the school is doing that.
And that was defined as, what's the timeline for being
Anybody who
considered
doesn't make
late
it after the bell.
after the bell?
Right, so if you have a first period class, then you have to be in school by 7:48. If you don't have a first period class, then you have to be in school by 8:45.
I'm collecting data, and I'm finding now that you're right. It has a lot to do with students coming late to school, not as much students who are not present for the full day. Accumulated tardiness equates to an absence.
Right, I was just going to say, so a series of tardies would be, and how many is that? What is that?
Three or four.
Equals one.
No, yeah, 3 or 4 equals 1 absence, I
I'll have to look it up for you, Mr. Magaziner.
But I wouldn't,
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's it.
It's all codified in the high school program of study.
I left
which-
mine at home.
Right, I'm also very curious as to, like, those that are in that chronically absent, chronically late bracket. By how long are they chronically late? Like, is it 15 minutes or is it, 3 hours? Like, are they missing a substantial part of the day or 5 minutes?
I mean, the times that I have been late to school, it's been by a couple of seconds almost, and they start logging in from there. Like the minute after the bell rings, they start counting for tardies. So it is frustrating when you are only a couple of seconds late, but that might be a problem. And like additionally to that, if a couple lines start to form and you become more late, and it's also because our system is kind of slow and there's only one person doing it, but it intervenes with class time. I was late by a couple seconds one day, and I had to stand in a line for 15 to 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, because they were trying to plug in so many people because they were late by a couple of seconds, and then I missed almost 20 minutes of class. So that was really frustrating. So yeah, I think that might definitely be a factor in student tardiness.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
I'm
we
sorry,
can look at that.
I think I kind of misstated what I meant to say. What it says in the state performance reports is that they're counting whether something is an excused or an unexcused. They don't care. In terms of the state report, whether it's excused or unexcused, it's counted in their chronic absenteeism. So that kind of goes to what you were saying, Bob, which was like, does it really matter whether it's an excused or unexcused absence in terms of chronic absenteeism? Like, if you're not there, you're not there.
Right,
So,
right,
like, maybe
okay.
for our own internal reporting, it matters for something, but in terms of the state, they're just like, if you're not in class, we want to know about it. So,
But in terms of the student losing credit, is that where the distinction comes in?
I'm sorry?
Right, so it's about losing credit if you're absent a certain number of days
right,
from
well, and then we
class.
start
and you-
getting into credit recovery and all those things.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's where
That's where that
I think
distinction
the
between,
state's
excuse me,
concerned contact time with teachers, right?
right.
They want to
Seems
know,
right.
they want to make sure that students are meeting with their teachers on a
Right,
regular
right.
basis. So when I'll talk about this in February, it's left to the local school districts and the board to determine to what extent a student could be absent until he or she loses credit. So there aren't clear numbers coming from the state that say, the student's absent 20 times, sorry, that child has to make up a class because you've lost credit.
All right, but so we'll dive into all that stuff more.
I promise.
in
February 12th.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, anybody else have anything for the students? No? All right, so we will move on to Dr. Taylor's report then.
So I've invited a special guest to come to the podium and talk about a committee that Tara Canavera, who is a parent here in the district, thank you for being here, Tara, by the way.
You're welcome.
And Susie Budine, our Director of Ed Services, rebirthed, I think is a good way to put it, last year. This is the second year,
This is our second active year again.
active year. So I've asked Tara to come report on the status and the doings of the CPAC. Thanks, Tara.
Thank you for having me. This past summer, Susie and I have worked very closely together to bring more programs and to make us a stronger group again. 3 years ago, we had a lot of parents whose children aged out and they left. So we were left with 3 members, pretty much, on the board, and a couple of regular members that came to meetings. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for approving us having a paraprofessional for babysitting during our meetings. It has increased our meeting attendance, which is really great. I've been working with the case managers. They've been handing out our information to new parents coming in or parents who don't know about us. And because of that, we were able to add 2 new board members to our board. We added Kim Kershaw as another co-leader because it was just too much for me and Amina to do alone because we didn't have an active board. We've also started giving teachers that come to our workshops professional development hours, so that's helped increase there. But I would like to point out a large amount of staff came to our meetings even before that, which was great and unusual. Sorry. I've been working very closely with the case managers on trying to make it easier for our parents who are going through guardianship and power of attorney. That's something that a lot of parents are having difficulty with, so I've been working really closely with coming up with, pretty much I have the document and we filled it in like Jane Doe, and so they can give that to the parents and help them a little bit, because a lot of our parents can't afford an attorney to do it on their, so this way we help them do it on their own. So far this year, we've had 2 roundtables. A roundtable is where parents come and voice their concerns. Thankfully, at the last 2, nobody really had any concerns. They just wanted to know more about CPAC and what we do. We've had 3 workshops. 1 was on behavioral intervention, 1 was on the GLOW program, and I'd like to add, due to that presentation, we do have a student transitioning back into the district, so very happy about that. And tonight, we were supposed to have a presentation on special ed from the inside out, but we're going to reschedule that because with everything going on in town, only 1 parent showed up and they're willing to let it be rescheduled. On March 6th, we're having a workshop, on the 20th of next month, we're having another parent roundtable. March 6th, we're having a workshop on guardianship with an attorney that specializes in that. And April 24th and May 22nd, we'll have our last 2 roundtables for the year. I'd like to point out that Susie has been really great at answering me. She usually gets back to me within, she always gets back to me within 24 hours, usually within 3 to 4, and she follows up within the next day. Any concerns, she's always been right on top of. And I'd like to give a very special thanks to Elaine Donnelly, who always goes above and beyond for CPAC. As a matter of fact, our meeting was in this room tonight, and you guys bumped us. And she made all the arrangements to get it moved because she knew that I was really busy. So I'd really like to thank her. While special ed in no town is excellent, we're really on the road of getting much better. And I just want to thank everybody for your support and belief in our special ed program and our kids. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara.
Do I have to sign?
Well, any questions? You mind if we open up for that, in case anybody has?
Anybody have any questions for Tara?
Well, there. Thank you, Tara.
Okay, thank you.
Go back to your meeting if you'd like. Feel free. We won't be offended if you step out the door. As Tara pointed out, there is a meeting happening right now at the high school. So I'm going to move on to talk.
Rescheduled.
I'm sorry?
She's saying it was rescheduled.
Oh, forgive me. I didn't catch that part. Thank you. Sorry. Well, I am going to move on. I'd like to talk a little bit about a file that was placed in the board drive, referred to as the DPR, the District Performance Review. The Department of Education is monitoring the school district as part of its regular every 3-year QSEC process. I'm just going to turn the projector on. So this is our time for monitoring. Fortunately, the department changed its procedures. So whereas in the past, 3 years ago, those who were on the board may recall, QSEC involved a complete audit of, I think it's 5 areas: governance, operations, personnel, curriculum and instruction, and fiscal matters. This year, rather than having an audit of all of those areas, they're just, the DOE is just honing in on any specific concerns they have, and right now they would like to take a look at our instruction, curriculum and instruction area program. We are in compliance and in a very good way in terms of curriculum alignment, professional development, and whatnot. But as I'm going to point out on the screen in just a second, we did not score points in all the areas that have to do with standardized test targets that we should have achieved. I went to a meeting about a month and a half ago of other school districts, North Brunswick, Edison, Metuchen. There are many districts in the county that are also being monitored, and it appears we're all in the same boat. We're all being examined for our instruction and program effectiveness because, as you can see on the screen, and this is now, I'm projecting the file that's in your drive, we did not meet annual measurable objectives in language arts literacy, which, as you can see, are, according to this rubric, 95% proficiency. In fact, the one area we were able to score points was in that we did have at least a 75 to 84.9% proficiency rate in the area of both literacy and math. So the zeros you denote, obviously no points received. The ones, points received. You can only receive 1 point. So I filled out this chart according to those areas I knew that we could score points.
I'm sorry, what about the 10, 8, 6? I can't read the top. So, next to the colored columns, there's...
Right, it's hard to understand what we're looking at. Like, if you could tell us what...
Okay, sure. I'll do that for you. Thank you. So this chart has, on the left side, what are referred to as indicators. Standards we're supposed to meet according to the Department of Education's CUSAC monitoring process. The second column, titled documentation, provides suggestions as to what this district will have to show in order to score points in certain areas. The point value column indicates the total number of points a district can receive if it can answer yes in that yellow column, which is the second column, district score. Of course, if we don't get any points because we didn't meet the indicator, we have to score 0. It's all or nothing, by the way. You don't get 1.5 points instead of 3 for that first item if we almost met the annual measurable objective. So you either get 3 points or you don't. So anywhere on this document you see a 0, it indicates we did not get any of the points in the point value column for the indicator. Anytime you see a 1, it means we got all of the points in the point value column because we met the indicator. The first few pages of this document are solely about standardized test performance. Did we meet state targets? Did we meet district targets? Targets, which I'll get into more when I talk about the performance report in February, are assigned for the district according to what the Department of Ed feels should be your growth from one year to another when it comes to standardized test achievement. State targets are established for all school districts. So the 95% target that would have districts, almost all of the kids proficient in language arts and math, that's established for all districts.
The green is the county, right? If I'm reading that correctly?
That's a good question. Sorry. Yes, so the green is the county score. Most oftentimes, the county score is not different than the district score. It's unless the district is being less than truthful, or the district provides itself a full complement of scores, but doesn't show enough documentation to the county to really affirm that, in fact, the district was worthy of getting all those points.
But this hasn't gone to the county yet.
This hasn't gone to the county
Because
yet.
we're approving it, it will then go to the county. And
And I'm going to get into that in a second because the state's actually going to come here and visit as they did 3 years ago, and they'll look at some of this documentation. But if you scroll down to towards the bottom of the document, you'll see that we fortunately do score in almost all areas. So we did not pass this section after I scored us because of not having met our standardized test targets. The state is going to send a small team to visit the school district, likely in April. We'll greet them, take them on a tour, lasts for about a half a day. In the past, it was a 1 to 2 day affair because they would require us to show documentation to verify we met the indicators in all those 5 big areas I mentioned to you, governance, operations, whatnot. This time, they're only going to be looking at instruction and program. So we'll have our curricula laid out for them so the state can see that we've properly aligned our curriculum to state standards. We'll show them documentation that illustrates all the professional development we're doing with staff, the work we're doing to have them examine data, whether it's internal assessment data or standardized assessment data. So tonight I'm asking the board to approve a motion for me to submit this to the state, again, knowing that we didn't achieve our goal.
Does it go to both the county and the state simultaneously, or does it go to the county first and then the state?
So actually, it goes to the county. The county handles everything from the review of the DPR to the visit, and then they
submit
will
to
send
the
it off
state.
to the Trenton
Okay.
to make final.
And I think it's like maybe important to do kind of like an overview. Like, so this is one area, the area that we did not pass is just one of what, 5,
Correct.
right? And primarily due to just the standardized test scores.
Correct.
So that's both our participation, which impacts the, I mean, I guess I just want to call attention to that because we all know this is based on the park scores. We all know what's happened over the last few years with park. We all, well, most of us I think know, we have a governor who has come in and said, it's gone. That's, the first thing he has tasked his new commissioner with doing is getting rid of this test. So at the same time, we're kind of looking at the outgoing, the fruits of the outgoing administration and have no idea as to how this is going to be looked at with the incoming administration. But my sense is that the new incoming administration is going to kind of look at this with the eye roll that we kind of look at this with. So, you can look at something like this and be like, oh my gosh, they haven't met all these indicators. But this is how the outgoing administration was looking at schools, and the incoming administration is going to be looking at schools much, much differently. So I wouldn't expect to see this heavy of a focus on standardized test scores, and their stated goal anyway at this point of the Murphy administration is to lessen the impact of standardized testing on districts. So I think this is the last year we're going to have to tough this kind of stuff out, and hopefully he's going to be looking for input as to what is going to replace park. His stated intention is to get rid of it, and if it's the people who study these things, their recommendation to him is going to be something that takes a lot less time, something that perhaps is still paper and pencil, something that can be administered in 2 to 3 hours, not in 7 to 8 days. So, this is last vestiges of really bad things.
I wanted to point out a couple of things, if I could. Dr. Taylor had mentioned that he went to a county meeting with other school districts that had also had these results, and that all of the neighboring districts were in that room.
Sure.
And some were big and some were small, but this is what we've known for a very long time, is that this is a flawed assessment. This is frankly a waste of our time and resources just administering this test, and we've known that for a very long time. So, I know that maybe someone watching might be thinking that this is a terrible reflection on our district, but when we're talking about closing achievement gaps, Park is not going to, be talking to that. And, Dr. Taylor had also mentioned in our curriculum committee meeting that next time we meet at our next meeting, we'll be getting a visit from the history teacher at the high school, Mr. Broadfoot, who will be talking to us about the U.S. history detracking program that we've, initiated there, so that we're presented with maybe some clearer picture about how we are really addressing the achievement gap. This is not a reflection on that. And one more thing I wanted to mention is that I think only 4 states, 4 of all
I think we're
the
down to
states-
4 in DC maybe.
Okay, so less than 5 states are participating in the park assessment for which we have, been flagged on this QSAC. So it really is a meaningless measurement.
And the contract is up this year. 2018 is when the park contract is up.
It's a shame the department doesn't measure student engagement, love for learning, enthusiasm. I mean, I'm throwing up some pictures here that show you, this is my whole complement of pictures, but our kids are fully engaged, they're fascinated. I mean, if you follow the Facebook feed, you can see that I'm taking pictures day in and day out of math workshop, the kids in the hall using manipulatives. I mean, that's the real deal. I can go on with pictures.
Scott, this is a ridiculous report. It's ridiculous, the whole thing. But did we get the same report? I don't remember this report last year, or were we not flagged? Or it's a
QSAC is
new
every 3
report,
years.
or what?
QSAC's every 3 years.
Every 3 years, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
It's
If this was
ridiculous.
every year, you wouldn't be able to pay a central office administrator enough if they had to do this every year.
Going back to the report, where we have the instruction and program total, it comes up to like the first column says it's like 176 points is what it looks like is the maximum point value you could get if you're an outstanding school district. But there's a number of
Wait,
districts.
let's not frame it that way.
Right. There's a number of areas where it's like A or B or C, or where you get like 10 points, 6 points, 4 points, 2 points, 0 points. If you add up the maximum number of points, it doesn't come up to 176. So
I didn't do the additions. I thought you were going to suggest something else. You know, if you don't score in one area, you're very well not going to score in like areas. They almost set you up for failure so that there's 2 or 3 clumped. But no, I didn't do the addition. I didn't realize it didn't total up.
So I'm just
176.
confused whether or not this report, in some respects, is correct because, you know, we're,
You would be sitting there checking the math.
it's just.
That would be your takeaway from the conversation.
Like even just 4A, where, you know, we achieved 6 points. But like if we were, I guess, really stellar, would we have achieved 10 points, or should we have achieved 6 points, 5 points, 4 points because we were? I'm not sure how you're supposed to add up the math, because if you add up the math where you only get 1 score in box 4, there's no way to come up to a total of 176. Unless
Just because you made it 10.
it's like, because I'm not.
I'm pulling up the original Excel file just to verify the numbers and make sure that there's no typo. But I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
I don't want to hold everybody up.
So
I'm going
we'll-
to look for the file. But that is the end of my report. I'll come back to the board and
So
talk
before
about-
you submit it, you will, because we're moving it now. We have a motion to,
Okay, so I'll get back to you before you actually have to vote on the motion.
tonight?
That's the preference.
Yeah, because like for number 4, it's saying the maximum you can achieve is 10. If you follow that logic through, it doesn't come up to 176. So I'm not even sure how this, where the difference is.
Linda, where would we move that resolution? Would we put it, would we vote on that? No? Okay. All right, why don't we table that motion then until I get back to you? So I have no problem with that. You can table that motion. Because I do want to get back to Rob and his question, and I don't think I'll have the time to do that right now. I may have to even ask the department head that question. Okay?
All right,
It just
so
means
we're
we'll be
tabling
delayed
it
in
for now?
submitting the DPR.
All right. So somebody want to make a motion to table number 12?
I'd like to make a motion to table number 12.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Linda, do we need to roll call that, or can we just do a?
Yes, roll call.
Yeah?
Yes. Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Moresti?
Yes?
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Di Nicola?
Yes.
Ms. Pietrobono?
Yes.
Mr. Reslevich?
Yes.
Okay.
That
So
concludes my
you're all
report.
done? All right, so we will move on to our board committee reports. Michelle, you want to get us started with the curriculum and instruction? And so, just for anybody who's here, anybody who's watching at home, we've run through, no, I guess we haven't run through a lot of these last month, right? So we're going to kind of go through these. All right, go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so we have the first item, approval of field trip requests. And
Not over your.
because I don't have the paper copy, I don't have the field trips in front of me, but there were only 3 that I recall. One of them was a college visit, sorry, not a college visit, it was a college fair at the Bishop R. High School for programs from different colleges near and far that offer a specific major or field of study in African American studies. So I think that trip was a handful of students had registered to go to that college fair, right? It wasn't that many, maybe a dozen. I don't remember how many students were going to that college fair.
It's a 25.
Maybe that just means there's room for 25, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I think that there was a registration involved, but, yeah. Thank you for pulling that up.
Doesn't really answer.
And that was it as far as the discussion on the field trip requests. Also, let's see. Sorry. Item number 2 is the approval of the HIB incident report. I think we're going to table that, right?
No.
Oh, no, we did those.
went through that.
Sorry. Apologies. Number 3 is the approval of university graduates, students. And these are students who would be doing phase 2 observations in the classrooms. Number 4 is approval of university graduate students for the Mason Grove School of the Arts, students who are enrolled in Foundations of Music Education course for sophomore practicum or observation time in the classroom. Number 5 is approval of Rutgers University Spring Conversation Program. And I don't know if you all recall, but we had a presentation on this not too long ago. It was the English Conversation Cafe for non-English speakers. Number 6 is the approval of a new course in the high school, which is nutritional science. Number 7 is the approval of the Child Study Team Observation Rubric. And I should mention that numbers 6 through 10 all have items that have been put on the drive for everyone's review. Number 8 is the approval of the Administrator Observation Rubric. Number 9 is the Secretary Observation Rubric. And number 10 is the Teacher Observation Rubric. So that was the agenda review.
And my understanding is that there hasn't been any changes to those, right, to the rubrics? These are the rubrics we've been using
I don't know the answer to that.
historically.
We can
Yes.
go
Yeah,
through that.
yes.
Okay.
It was recommended that it be a good practice for the board to annually approve the rubric. So at every reorganization meeting, I'll place these on the agenda.
Okay.
So like from here on out, this will just go, like the one at the beginning of the year, right?
Correct.
We will just put it on the January agenda where we are like, approving all the things that, our attorney or this or the other.
These were added after our meeting, so that's why I didn't have the answer.
Yeah. Well, I knew just because I brought it up with Scott when we met to go over the agenda, because I didn't remember voting on rubrics in a very long time, like not since we adopted the Danielson rubric, like eons ago, like
Yeah.
years ago.
Before I was
So-
on the board.
Yeah. So I think this is just something that's kind of fallen off the agendas over the year, but it's good practice
Yes.
to approve them every year. And I just wanted to point out that it's not a change. These are the same observation rubrics that we've been using. So.
Good to know.
And by the way, we are using Genesis to store all of the evaluation data, teachers, principals, supervisors, paras. It's been very helpful.
I have a question about item 6, about the new course at the high school. Is there a teacher already approved for that, or what is it falling under in terms of,
It'll be a science teacher, but we don't know which one,
and it's functioning as an elective or as a science course?
as an elective.
It was, I don't know if I'm right about this, but it was kind of an addendum to a chemistry course, an elective in terms, like to...
For those students that don't want to take the traditional course, but need to get a science in.
Right. And that's beginning next year, right?
That's correct. Yeah, you'll see another few course approvals being recommended to the board because we're getting ready to develop next year's program of study. Probably next month you'll have a few more.
So the second item that we spoke about in our meeting was the CUSAC monitoring that we discussed earlier in the superintendent report, and that's going to be a half-day visit sometime in March or April by the State Department of Ed. And we had already discussed that. So number 3 on our committee agenda was to discuss the Kaplan SAT course. And that is an online course, I believe, just online, that will be held potentially in our district, but would be open to students inside and outside of our district. So the deal is that we get a discount for Highland Park students because it's being held here and we're letting them use our facility. A discount for our students up to $150 off of the Kaplan classes. And they actually have a price tag of close to $1,000 for this SAT prep. So if we get the minimum requirement of students to take the course, which is 6 to 8 students, it's enough to run the course. In that case, they will be offering us somewhere between 6 to 10 scholarships for our students, so that Highland Park students can apply according to their need and other particulars, would be given a full scholarship to attend the class. They don't want more than 30 students in one course. So I had asked a couple questions, and Ms. Botvinnik, our English teacher in the middle school, she had actually approached Kaplan to get this deal for us. So she had answered some of our questions. And so let's see. The first course will be offered this spring semester if we approve, if we are okay with all the particulars. And the course would then be offered to juniors first and then to sophomores, because the need is greater at that grade level to prepare for the SAT. If there are seats open, then they would be open to freshmen after that, if there were still spots open after sophomores were given the offer. And the students who would potentially be getting scholarships would have to write a brief statement or essay on why they want to attend the course, how the scholarship would benefit them, what their future college and career goals are, and they would also have to include some sort of commitment to assure that they would complete the course, so that we wouldn't have places going empty midway. This plan would also include free workshops for students and parents to learn about test prep strategies, options, and navigating college admissions, and would also include practice tests, full-length SATs, ACTs, or a combination practice tests. It also can be run as a fundraiser, so that practice tests are run and administered while materials and proctors are provided, and in order to run a practice test, there must be at least 50 students registered through Kaplan.
I do want to clarify one thing. It's a combination online and live instruction course, so it's not just strictly online. Any questions about that?
Yes, so the discounted price is,
$150 off of the ticket price, which is,
I think
well,
it's-
it depends, because the retail price is $8.99, between $8.99 and $9.99. Yeah, but if they register 3 weeks in advance, it could be as low as $750.
Limited time offer.
I have a question
I nearly
about
died.
that.
I have a junior in my house, so, yeah.
I also want to add that to get the numbers they would want in the class, they would, as long as we're willing to accept students from outside of Highland Park who may be interested in coming to our school to take the course. But we would give Highland Park students first dibs.
And like a weekend thing, an evening thing?
It would be during the week,
And how
so that
long
we
does
didn't have
this
to open
run?
up the building at night after school.
That's a good question. Monique asked it, how long would it be run? How long would the course last?
During each session, or if total, I think it's 13 sessions total, but I don't know how long each
How
one would
many
be.
hours are we talking about for the cost?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm not sure how long each one would be. I can look into that, but I know there'd be 13 sessions total
Okay.
across the spring.
so is this a different course than the course that's given in New Brunswick at
think
Kaplan
it's
in
the
New
same.
Brunswick? or-
It's straight on Kaplan. So it'd be the same Kaplan standard
for a
course,
discount. Same.
not watered down or anything like that.
So my two questions are, this would not stop us from running our district-sponsored SAT prep course, would it?
It would not,
Okay, so we would still run one that was available at low cost and free.
taught by our teachers.
Right, taught by our teachers and free to
Absolutely.
any kids who are on free and reduced lunch.
Yes.
So we're not taking that option away, this would just be an additional
addition,
option.
right.
And then my other question would be, so if they have, 30 seats are available, all 30 fill up, is it too bad, so sad, no free seats? Or is it you hit 6 and then you get 6 free ones? Do you know what I mean?
My takeaway,
Because if they could say, well, we filled all 30, sorry, we don't have any room for those
Right.
scholarships, or do the scholarships
the
automatically?
scholarships are there, that's already a third of the class taken.
Okay, it's already, that's built in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this course would go in the spring, or
In
would
the
it, what's the time frame for it?
I understood that it was a spring course.
Well, the SATs are
Right, 'cause
May.
That's why
Probably.
what I was.
No, the SATs run every month or so.
It's
Every
every
month, but
other
what's
month
the-
or something like that. So like, would it accumulate to like the June SAT, or would it be like for different test dates?
Normally, it would lead up to one.
So everybody in the class would
Right.
take the same SAT date?
I think we're shooting for the June administration. We were hoping to do this earlier, but the folks organizing it just didn't have all their ducks in a row in time. So I think in the future, we would run it in the fall in anticipation of spring administration. Isn't there one coming up in March?
There's one coming up in March, but I guess it's too late for that at this point, for like to start running a class for that, but there is one in.
I don't know what the
June
dates
as
are
well.
this year. Typically, so they canceled the one in January this year. There's one in March. Typically, there's one in May. There's always
And
one
there's
in
one
June.
in June as well.
They offered an August SAT that was only open to U.S. students, not internationally, this past year. But that was more of an experiment in terms of cheating abroad than a typical practice, I think.
Interesting. All right, so, I mean, maybe get back to us with just a tiny bit more information, and then we'll...
Sure, no problem. I can send an email to the board about that.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda. It was just
Yeah.
something that we,
Yeah.
we needed to run through. Lastly is our 5-year curriculum revision cycle, and that's also on the drive for everyone to look at. But this is now something that is going to be outliving all of us, probably on the board and in administration, because this will be here so that our curriculum does not sag in the way that it has over the past 10 years, so that every single year there will be some attention to curriculum done, so that steps 1 through 5, research, design, implementation, professional development, monitoring, and evaluation, will be done at some point with all of our tested subjects, or I shouldn't say tested subjects, but our state mandated subjects. So social studies, music, technology, math, English, language arts, science, health, world languages, and art, and physical education, sorry. So they'll run through this cycle every 5 years. And this year, for example, step 1 would be researching social studies K through 5 curriculum, so that it's, this cycle that we go through to make sure that, everything that needs to be done is addressed according to curriculum. And electives would be done on an as-needed basis, because they wouldn't be part of this 5-year cycle.
Michelle, I had two questions about the curriculum, but I think I'd like to address them to our superintendent. The health courses, I believe, were not complete per the cycle, right? So that we worked on the health courses, but they weren't complete in all the grades, even though per the cycle they were at the late stages. What's the plan for the health courses?
Well, there won't be any, we don't anticipate purchasing resources. We're going to pull from what we can.
Right.
Our K-5 health curriculum is fully implemented now. The kids are meeting at least 6 times with Mr. Stark and Mr. Roig. It's been my intent to get the middle and high school teachers together, working with somebody from South Orange Maplewood School District who has a lot of experience developing health curriculum.
Great.
In March, because of some recent challenges of which the board is aware with personnel,
Yes.
I might have to wait until April, but the plan is to have a fully executable health curriculum for middle and high school ready to go for September 2018.
Fabulous, thank you.
So our K-12 program will
And
open
there's
right
been
now.
concern at the Board of Health meetings that I go to about the health curriculum, particularly about the sex education curriculum. And
Yeah.
I know that we're addressing this, but it's come up at almost every Board
Of
of
course.
Health meeting from the high school student reps, and I think completely correctly.
There is a lot of concern in the high school about the sex ed curriculum. It's just the entire health curriculum in general. So I was just wondering, like, what kind of changes are going to be made, and if there's going to be any more structure to the health curriculum, because it's very disorganized every year, and especially sex ed is not emphasized as much, and it's just there's just no structure to it. There's no like real curriculum for it, so it's very difficult to pay attention to.
Well, and just that it's interesting that in light of events that are happening in the news right now, there's fascinating conversations that are happening that outside of the classroom about consent, about sexual education, and we don't see those conversations being replicated in an environment where there's a teacher to sort of moderate. So I think that, it's certainly from the student perspective, there's more to be explored beyond what we traditionally think of as sexual education, especially because of recent events.
Since the very first day that I was a board member, this has been an issue, coming from me. So it's on the radar.
Yeah, it's also just very outdated. Like the textbooks that we use are very outdated, and the information that we're being given is very outdated, and it's not progressive at all, especially for sex education. And it doesn't involve like LGBT sex education. It doesn't involve it still is talking about abstinence more than other kinds of means of sex education, and it's just it's becoming more difficult for students to get important information that they need. And also, I'm also concerned about the lack of, like my sister is an 8th grader and she never got she got very little health education, and especially in 5th grade, which is that puberty unit that everybody's really uncomfortable with, but was really important for us. And I think more of an emphasis on consent as well in elementary school especially is really important, and having those conversations at an earlier age. So I'm hoping that that's going to be in the curriculum as well.
Well, there's a plan.
As a parent of 6th graders, I can tell you that the 5th grade program came back last year with much giggling and everything that ensues with that in my household with 2 girls. So we've at least gotten to the point where that's back, and now we're moving up from there. So
It's clear with a lack of a supervisor to help teachers go there. Mm-hmm. That's fallen, especially at the upper grades, by the wayside. And that is not an area of my expertise, which is why I told Michelle that I finally had to wrap my head around reaching outside, and that's why we're going to bring in Johanna Wright, who some of you may know is a health educator in South Orange. And she does this work. She does help people write curriculum.
Yeah, I didn't really know much about it until I had a model Congress committee actually about this last year. And it was really funny because it wasn't funny, but it was interesting how like I went from debating about it for 4 days as like a fake legislator to having a sex ed class like that Monday after I came back, and it was just like it is a reality, and it was just interesting to see like how our ideas could kind of be incorporated into that. So yeah.
And Scott, I had another question on a completely different side of the curriculum. When I read the curriculum cycle, I noticed that K and pre-K are at the very early stages of research in the curriculum cycle. So I just like to emphasize that there's modern research on play in K and pre-K, and the use of blocks and sand tables and water and so on. And in now several times having tours at the Irving School, seeing some of that in pre-K, but none of it in K. And I'd like us, when we're doing our curriculum for those grade levels, this modern research talks about play being so important in those grades that we take that into account. So please put that at the top of the list when people are doing their investigations.
I have a meeting with the curriculum supervisors Friday, so I'll pass that along.
Excellent, thank you.
One thing that if you want to be talking about kind of health education in pre-K to K and kind of incorporating play is, I think consent could also be like just simply like if you don't want to be touched during tag, if you don't want any kind of like physical contact, this learning no means no from that kind of age could possibly be a really important like aspect of that curriculum.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. It's important. I just have one quick housekeeping issue. I was trying to access some of our curricula, and I couldn't. Some of it seemed very outdated on our website, and some I couldn't. Is there like a central area where I could be looking for it, or how do I access the most updated curricula for our district?
Are you referring to curriculum guides and whatnot? So you should be able to go to did you go to the curriculum drop-down menu?
Yes, some of it is not completed and some of it is outdated. The Math 6A was rewritten last year and it's not on there. I can't access it anywhere.
I'll look into that. I mean, I'm on the STEM website right now. That's where we have most of our curricula.
Yeah.
We were lacking in the humanities area.
Yeah, there were some that were completely not.
And I
filled out.
expect that Ms. Fittipaldi is going to be working on that when she's our new supervisor for humanities.
Okay.
But I'll follow up about that when I meet with them Friday. Thanks for pointing
Is
that
there
out.
somewhere where I can get a paper version of this, or is it all going to be online?
It should all be online.
Okay.
And it should all be, as I'm
On our
looking at it
website.
now, under each subject area. So if you go to the STEM area, I'm clicking math, I see grades 1 to 6, actually 1 to 8 there. Anything that's not there is hasn't been revised yet. So while we might be aligned to the 2009 standards, we're covered with CUSAC, we just didn't feel comfortable putting it online because it's not being implemented the way we'd like right now.
Okay.
Okay, that's everything?
That concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle. Mark, can we move on to finance and facilities, please?
Yes, thank you. So first I'd like to talk about our Finance Committee meeting last week. So we discussed the items on the agenda. We reviewed them. There's some interesting ones. When I get to them, I'll describe what we talked about. We reviewed the current student enrollment. There's a lot of discussion about current student enrollment. We had the demographics report last year. I believe Darcy will be talking about that in the President's report. But with those reports, we do know that the enrollment this year looks to be slightly down. We have no explanation for that, but we are getting regular reports on the number of students in the district month to month. We're going to fine-tune those to see students in district, out of district, but we are reviewing that in light of building space if the district grows with all the new building going on. We discussed the high school and middle school heat issues that came up. The board had heard about some heating issues in the high school, particularly on social media, and so I want to talk a little bit about the heat in the school system, especially in light of the cold snap at the beginning of January. So first of all, there's a new boiler in the high school. There's two boilers. One was very old. It was replaced a year or 18 months ago. It cost many, many hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's modern, up to date. It's working and in good order. The other boiler, the second boiler that was kept, was also in good order. There were some suggestions that the district couldn't pay for heat. Of course we can. We have our typical budget this year. It's challenging every year, but we have ample money to pay for heat. There's no problems with the heat. There's no problems paying for the heat. The one problem we did have is there was an electrical connection in a panel in the high school that supports one room in the middle school, loosely one room in the middle school and 2 rooms in the high school, plus part of the high school auditorium. And that electrical panel had some issues. And because of those issues, those rooms were cold. The first thing that was done was parts were ordered to replace and fix the panel. And students were not taking classes in those classrooms. They were moved from those classrooms for a matter of days until the heat was back on and working. And I think the auditorium took a little bit longer for the repair to take place, but the repair was done. The other issue that came up was the glass walkways in the high school. So there's glass walkways in the high school. Those have been cold since the high school was built in 1927. Nothing's changed. I've heard about it for 40 years since I've lived here. But the board is doing something about it. We have in the budget and scheduled for purchase, if not purchased already, I didn't check, some units to heat those walkways. And that heating will be both heating and air conditioning. There are many split units, they'll heat or they're air conditioned. So that in the spring and summer, hopefully, they'll be up and in operation. We expect them to, so that we won't hear about how hot it is in those hallways. And we have a schedule. We're ordering 10 of these mini split units. Those will cover a number of classrooms, those hallways. The high school, the middle school, Bartle and Irving, all of those schools will get new units. And we're moving on to make sure that every classroom in this district, barring a failure of some hardware, that every classroom is heated and air conditioned. So that's the situation and the real situation as far as the heating systems in the schools. Another item that I wanted to report on is the Finance Committee took a tour of the Irving School K and pre-K special education classrooms last week. What's happened is we've had a number of students be classified through the local hospital at age 3 as requiring special education assistance. The reason the Finance Committee went is because it's very, very expensive when you are educating a special education student, particularly a very young one where the class ratio, student-teacher ratio and paraprofessional ratio has to be very small. So a number of unanticipated expenses came up. So we wanted to see with our own eyes exactly what was going on. So Darcy and Rob and I went. We went there with Dr. Taylor and our special education supervisor and so on, Susie Boudin. And we went into the classrooms. We saw what I feel was wonderful education for these very young children at very appropriate student-teacher ratios. The very great benefit of hiring extra teachers to have these classrooms in our system and teach these children in our system is that these children are in the town, they're learning here, they're not being sent out of district, which costs a phenomenal fortune, and many of them will hopefully be moved into inclusive classrooms as they get older, especially with the extra help they get. So we were, I would say, speaking for all of us, correct me, all very, very impressed with what we have and what we're getting for the extra money this year that we put into that. Now, on to hold on, one more thing. We also talked about the current state of our budget during our finance meeting. So this year, our savings over what we appropriated exist, but it is, at this point this year, smaller than the savings that we came up with last year at this time. So it's been a challenging year. We do have savings in the budget. What the board has done typically is put savings from this year into the next year so that we can keep the tax rates low. And the auditor reported on this last month that I think the board put $2 or $3 million forward from savings in a particular year, not spending every penny to keep the tax rates low moving forward from year to year. And we're going to do the same this year. So we're this year looking for more money that we can save, and we hope to do the same this year, move forward, put money into next year's budget and keep the tax rates down. We will be meeting 4 times in January, starting January 29th, and 4 sessions planned between that and February. That's the Finance Committee, that's Rob and Darcy, myself, and Linda, to review with Scott and with some of our administrators to review next year's budget. And then we'll have our public meetings and we'll have our presentations around town, and then we'll adopt our budget, I believe sometime in May. I always get confused the date, but I think it's in May. So with that's getting started, and that's going to be very hectic for everybody. So sorry about the long report.
And Mark, I just want to add real quick that we identified an additional challenge, which is that typically we get our state aid figures the fourth Tuesday in February, right, Linda?
The governor's budget address is usually the fourth Tuesday.
Right,
and we get the
them
state
the
aid
next day
figures
or
on
two.
the Thursday, 2
Right.
days later.
But Linda identified that in a transition year, that can be delayed. So we went back and we looked back to 2010, I think, when Christie took office. And indeed, that was pushed back until March 16th. So we're not going to know what our figures are until potentially like March 18th. And then I think it's like the next day that our preliminary budget is due to the county. So this is going to be
Very hard.
It's going to be hard because all we can anticipate is what we've had for the last 8 years, which is flat funding, or last 7 years. 8 years ago, huge crash of, underfunding and then flat funding ever since. So we can't anticipate any additional money, but we might get additional money because that's one of Governor Murphy's campaign promises is full funding of the School Funding Reform Act. So we don't know. We're going to plan a whole budget assuming flat funding when more very well may be coming our way. So we don't know. So we're in this particular pickly predicament this year.
And this year,
interesting.
at the beginning of the year, we got an extra $200,000 and change from the Christie administration and the legislature kind of at the last moment. I think some of us are hoping we get that $200,000, which is in a $35 million budget, so it's a drop in the bucket. So hopefully Murphy will be able to pull some rabbits out of hats and we'll get much closer to the kind of funding from the state that the state deems we're supposed to get by their own formulas. But we will see. So onto the agenda. Items number 1 through 20 are pro forma typical bill lists, athletic bill lists, the certifications. So these are certifications for the first half of the year on reimbursement reports, treasurer reports, secretary reports, education certification, budget transfers, pretty much saying that our business manager, that's Linda Hofola, says that we haven't overexpended, that we're not in arrears, that we've done everything by the book. The auditor has been here. We now have the wherewithal to, we would say this anyway because it's true, but the auditor has been here to certify this all. So items 1 through 20 cover all of that. Item 21 are professional services. So this is 4 sets of professional services. Item 22 is a settlement agreement for the sending a child to a special education program based on a legal agreement between our lawyer and family's lawyers.
And we talked about that one at length in closed session.
Yeah, we talked about that
in our meeting.
And we had a presentation from a special education director, and the committee was on board with this. This is going to cost us, but it seems to be a reasonable agreement, and with the hope, I think it's a 2 or 3 year agreement, with the hope that the child at the end of this agreement will be able to come in district because we'll have more access to see what their needs are. And so we'll see at the end what happens. And the cost of this is considerably less than most special education out-of-district placements. It's on the order of $40,000, not $100,000. So it's something that we believe the committee believes that we should be approving. We have 3 bedside instruction cases. We have a number of donated funds and equipment, so I wanted to thank the Highland Park Education Foundation. I wanted to thank, this is from an anonymous source, an Oki color printer, that's item 25. I wanted to thank the Shopowitz family for a flute valued at $300 to benefit the music program at Bartle. I wanted to thank the Isaacson Crossan family for a French horn valued at $1,000 for that same program. Thank you all, really appreciated by the district. And then we have 2 out-of-district placements of a different sort. These are 2 students going to taking courses at Middlesex County Community College. one for $478 and another for $493.50. These are relatively nominal amounts for a student to take a college course when we don't give such a course. So this is really excellent, and something in my prior tenure on the board I always fought for. This is an excellent thing for us to be able to do. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Does anybody have any questions for Mark? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to personnel. Judy?
Okay. So our committee met on Wednesday, and everybody was present. So I'm going to start with the agenda review. Number one, approval of substitute teachers, which we always have on our list. We have the acceptance of a resignation of part-time technician that Scott mentioned earlier, of Alexander Lasco. We have an appointment of a spring musical volunteer tech assistant, Mariella Klinger, for the spring musical. We have number 4 and 5. We have the appointment of 2 full-time paras at Irving. One is a replacement, and the second one is an additional. This kind of continues on from what Mark was talking about. The preschool disabled program has expanded, and due to class size, it needs to be split into 2 classes. So we needed to hire an additional para. It also meant that number 7, that we moved a part-time special ed teacher to a full-time special ed teacher. So that's number 7. Number 6 is the appointment of an administrative secretary over at Bartle, Tiara Moe. And we need to actually strike number 8, right? Yep. Yes, number 8. We thought we had a replacement teacher for Ms. McNally, who is filling in for Kelly Freeborn at Irving, and that person has changed her mind. So we are still looking for a special ed teacher, temporary special ed teacher at the middle school. Let's see. Number 9 is just the approval of payment for 6th grade orientation for 2 teachers. We have some Schedule B changes, if you can make note of that. We have the appointment of Fuse Studio equipment managers at Bartle. And also staff at the social emotional decision-making lab at Bartle, before and after school program staff. That's all pretty standard. Morris, and yes, we're welcoming Mr. Harper tonight. He's the substitute Schedule B videographer for the Board of Ed meeting. And we have a appointment of a Schedule B Dean of Restorative Practices, Juliana Luxa. And yeah, the rest is pretty standard. Number 19 is an approval of maternity disability leave.
I have a quick comment, which on number 13, if it's the Matea Hammond that I know, her first name only has 1 T. If it's a different Matea Hammond, then it's fine. But I don't know. It's a small error. I don't know if
it's probably the way you go, so I'll make a correction on that.
She's done programs at Irving before, that's why.
Yeah, it's her.
Yeah.
Okay. 1 T then.
Okay.
Okay, so let me, and I have a little bit more. So besides the agenda, the other things we spoke about is, hold on, the continuing saga of the Irving School Media Specialist. We are having a very difficult time finding a person for that part-time position. So I just wanted to update everybody and let you know the administration is working on a plan to see if there's possibly an internal candidate that has the certification, and we're in the discussion phase to see if that person might be interested in taking on that responsibility. So we are still looking at that. I know this is the time of the year that we start looking at the principals who are coming up for tenure. So as a committee, we look at their evaluations and we have a discussion about that. Scott also announced that he will be doing job fairs at both TCNJ and Montclair State University for any potential positions that we don't have filled or ones that are upcoming. And that sums it up.
Okay,
And
great.
anything I forgot?
Anybody have any questions for Judy?
Not a question. I just wanted to just confirm, and I appreciate this, Scott, that when we place our job listings now, we are trying to reach as diverse a candidate pool as possible. So I know we're listing in some additional places that the public might want to know about. I know some of the HBCUs are now among the places where we are posting, or the sites, the job purveyor sites that are used by some of those colleges. Are there any other new listing sites that we're making use of?
Any what? Any new
Any new-
initiatives?
yeah, listings.
No. I mean, I'm hoping that when we go to TCNJ in Montclair, I can do as I did last year and actually recruit people to come to our table and
Right.
find interest in the positions. I mean, fortunately, it's not a teacher position, but the individual who I'm recommending for appointment as the administrative assistant happens to be African American. It does help to have representatives from different subgroups in the main office as well as in the
Sure,
classroom.
absolutely. It's more welcoming.
But besides advertising on our historically black college mail list and reaching out actively when I go to the recruiting fairs, there are no other initiatives at this point.
Nothing else going on? Okay.
But now that we have Monique on board, I mean, I'm always open to finding new ways to reach out to minority candidates. It's difficult, but I'm sure there's better ways to do it. So perhaps the Equity and Excellence Committee can take that up as an agenda item.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, we sort of talked about it in personnel, but, Judy is a little bit of a personnel expert, but none of us, I don't think, are real diversity recruitment experts. So maybe you guys can find someone to advise us. I don't know.
And actually, one of my peers in my EDD program is in the Minority Recruitment Office at Rutgers, and this is her specialty, so I will definitely consult with her
Wonderful.
on
Great
strategies
contact.
that we may find helpful.
Wonderful.
Great.
We'd appreciate that. Thank you, Monique.
I just have one really quick question, I'm so sorry, about the social emotional decision-making lab. Can you describe what that's going to look like?
Sure. So, as I've stated before, we're reopening the Bartle Lab that closed a few years ago. Starting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, the first 2 undergraduate interns from the Rutgers Applied Psychology Department will be there to work with Tracy and Maiden. So we have a classroom in the basement at Bartle, not the basement, the first floor. Doesn't sound good if I call it the basement. The subfloor, set aside for the lab, so there's a special space for it. The undergrads will be there for 3 hours twice a week. We have a reporting system, just like we did with Ms. Podebecki ran it. In fact, Ms. Podebecki consulted us, we consulted with her to reinstall the same routine. So teachers will be able to fill out a report if they have kids who they think could use some special services in the area of social emotional skill building. But the undergraduates are also going to push in and do mini lessons with the teachers. We're doing it right now on a voluntary basis with teachers rather than making it standard. So we'll see how it plays out. But this is it. We start tomorrow. We come back to where we were.
Great, terrific, thank you.
Slowly putting things back together.
Progress.
Okay, so if nobody else has any other questions for Judy, we don't have anything on the agenda. Anne, for policies, any updates or anything you want to give us?
No, we have a
Or you
meeting
guys?
coming up on February 1st.
Very exciting. I'm sure you're
Churning out the
looking forward to
policies at that time. That is our final meeting date, by the way, confirmed.
And what was the date again?
February
February 1st.
Should I make sure that that's correct? You guys,
I'll look.
5, I'm looking right now, 5:45, Thursday, February 1st. Scott's office.
Wonderful.
All right. And one of us will need to sit out, so think amongst yourselves.
I did it last time, so I will be there. So someone else will sit out.
Yeah, we'll draw straws and see.
I like that we're vying for position for policy committee meetings. That's pretty fabulous. Okay, don't want to put you on the spot, Monique, but we don't have anything on the agenda tonight. Is there anything you wanted to share with us for your first night at the, full night at the board table for equity and excellence?
Right, this is a segment where I'm supposed to talk about all that we're doing on equity and excellence, and I am just getting started. So I'm going to look forward to scheduling a meeting really soon. That's the first item on the agenda, and I'm looking forward to just plunging in, reviewing Teresa's folder of meeting notes and agenda items and just kind of to catch myself up and be ready to take it from there.
Sounds like a great place to start. All right. So that will move us on to public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and reserve this time for your comments. If you'd like to make public comment, please come up to the podium. There should be a piece of paper and a pen there for you to write your name and your address for the board secretary so we can record your presence here with us tonight.
Tara Canavera, 361 Crowles Road, Highland Park, New Jersey. And it's great that you were talking about principal tenure and diversity because I'm here to talk about Mr. Benjamin. Myself and others believe that there's a concerted effort in our community to get rid of Principal Benjamin. Mr. Benjamin has served Highland Park and Bartle students with great joy, passion, and I can't even speak. Distinction. Mr. Benjamin has always been approachable, consistently informs and communicates with parents, and has created an elementary school environment like no other. Mr. Benjamin arrived at Bartle in the summer of July 2014 and began to work on the building teachers' trust, restoring and creating great programs to the school and classroom, and improving teacher and student morale, and increasing the students' achievements. Most recently, Mr. Benjamin informed the teachers and the PTO that they were not only the only school in the district to progress but exceed state performances on the park exam. Just a small list of practices and projects that represent and show some of Mr. Benjamin's leadership. He just completed the first ever Martin Luther King Day of Service, where we did have nearly 100 people come and participate. I was there with my family. It was great fun. We did a lot for the school, and he hopes to eventually build that out into the community. Comprehensive monthly parent newsletters that celebrate and acknowledge the students, the teachers, and the parents. And pretty much everybody on the board knows me, knows I have been volunteering in town and in schools pretty much for 10 years since I moved to town. He is the only principal who has ever sent me a letter thanking me for volunteering. Never have I gotten that from any of the other four schools. Well, three other schools, which is appreciated. Mr. Benjamin conceived the idea of having co-presidents for the PTO, one teacher and one parent, so that way there's better communication between the staff and the parents. He's always backing the PTO 100%. He created team leaders to share school decision-making. He helped the Highland Park Ed Association restore grade level team meetings, which were taken away by the Capone regime. Established comprehensive interview, hiring, selection committees that includes parents on every single committee. Always has an open door policy and an open school. There's other schools that I won't mention that parents aren't welcome. Any parent with a student in Bartle can ring that bell and go in, and if they need to see him or see their student, they're welcome. He welcomes parents to volunteer. His website is one of the few that's updated. The calendar is always updated. His Twitter account is updated. He sends teachers weekly bulletins acknowledging, thanking, and praising the teachers. He started the new playground fundraising incentive to get students a new playground. He was named the Middlesex Education Association Administrator of the Year in 2016. Has created a number of family events and functions, some including family movie night, math night, family bingo night, the Valentine's dance, daddy-daughter dance, and way too many to continue mentioning. He was instrumental in helping Rachel, I'm always going to say this wrong, Pachow, create the landscape that we receive statewide recognition for. He's engaged teachers on addressing and improving race relations and cultural competency through monthly PLC meetings. He had created the Bartle Read Across America Parade and the Parent Read-In, led the creation of the Staff First Student Fitness Challenge, which is happening this week, and my son is really excited to beat the teachers again. He pushed to get the basic skills back at Bartle that was also cut by the Capone regime. He started a new incentive, which is the Marigold Effect, where the teachers listed what their strengths were. It's posted in the teacher's lounge, where if a teacher sees, oh, I'm not really good at this, they can go to that teacher will help them. He also has created meetings for the special ed teachers so that their concerns are addressed, which to me is extremely important. And that's it for my praise of Mr. Benjamin. I'd also like to say what you were saying about keeping children in district. Not only is it financially sound, but it helps the children because they're in their community, they're with their peers. My daughter was unfortunately out of district and she has no friends in town. So it's really great that we're working so hard on the pre-K program. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. Feel free to move the microphone.
What? Oh, yeah. Okay. And hi, my name is Helene Nee, and my issue involves like a school community issue. It's not involving the educational issue exactly. And last summer, I had an issue, and I wrote to Gail Brill-Mittler, and she got me in touch with Dr. Scott Taylor, and I'm joined here by many of our neighbors, and it involves this drum and bugle corps, which had been rehearsing several full weekends this summer in our backyard in the high school field. And unfortunately, the problem with this is that they rehearse for hours and hours. It's like 6 or 7 hours, the same riffs over and over again, drums and bugles, making it impossible to function or do anything. And it was 3 full weekends in the summer that we had to suffer through this. And our school is in a residential community. I mean, literally in our backyards, and this type of drum and bugle corps is huge. I mean, I'm a music lover. I play music. I'm very into music, my husband and I. And I mean, obviously I couldn't play the piano or do anything while this noisy place is undergoing, you know, their rehearsal. It's huge. There's a number of many students. We don't mind the high school band practicing, you know. Certainly when Rutgers was practicing here, there was no problem either because of, you know, it wasn't for hours and hours and hours. This is an outside group that's rehearsing and practicing here. I had said that this type of group doesn't belong in a residential area. They belong, like, for instance, East Brunswick High School, high up on a hill, you know, far away from people that are there. I know they said they like it here. My husband had spoken to their conductor because we have a lot of laundry facilities in town. But there are many other places that have laundry facilities in town. I myself suffer from a hearing loss. I only have hearing in one ear. I could not stay home while this was going on, so even after I left, my ear was like reverberating, like ringing, so it's causing me some damage, which is very hard because I'm working as a social worker. I need to be able to hear my clients. This is very important to me, so actually it's causing me great pain and suffering. It was 3 full weekends last summer, and Dr. Taylor had said, well, they could start later, but even when they start later, you know, and not wake us up at 8, maybe I'll do it at 9 or 10. They're still going to be persisting for 6 hours. This is an outside group. I mean, if it was some place from our community, I would understand. But I think that since this is an elective course, not a required group, then maybe they should find another place. I said, well, why can't they cordon off an area in Johnson Park or Donaldson Park that's the shape of a football field and practice there? You know, I mean, certainly if they have to practice in Highland Park because of our laundry facility, that's an option. That was done by other groups near our son's school in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and that worked out fine. But in our backyards, creating havoc for us and all our neighbors, including people that have babies that can't sleep, you know, and dogs that, you know, are disturbed by the noise, and people like me who have a hearing loss, this is very difficult. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. Is this the, what is this?
Crossman, right?
Craftsman, yeah.
But that's just one weekend, isn't it?
It is hours, though.
Then we have somebody else who will speak, and then I'll share. I'll follow up.
In your office uptown.
Hi, I'm Ann Flower, 106 North Fifth Avenue. I'm your next door neighbor. It has been at least 3 years that this core has come. I'm wondering, are they paying rent to the school or the county? Since, as I understand it, our football field is funded by and maintained by both our town school budget and the county. I'm wondering if that's the motivation for having them there. I too love the high school football. I love hearing them, even if I don't go to the last 2 minutes. I hear the students come and go. I'm self-employed, work out of the house much of the time. My office is 10 foot from your driveway. And my son went here K through 12 and I'm now a grandma. He's 34. And also, I just want to say, the sidebar, you guys are so, like, awesome compared to, like, 3 or 4 years ago when I'd watch on TV and it's like, turn it off, your son is out of school, why are you doing this? But back to, it is absolutely insane, this band, that they will do 3 or 4 bars of music. The director has a microphone. They have huge trucks that run air conditioning that right behind my house in your parking lot that provide food for all the students. 1 year, the band, the drum, they break them up into different aspects of the band, and the drummers were all in the driveway. And you can imagine if my house is 10 foot from your driveway, the reverberation of the band and I really would like to know why we're doing this. Secondly, I have a friend who's a professor at Rutgers in women's studies, and so she would be here at this issue, but she's on sabbatical in DC writing a book. She, during the entire time this band came, had to leave her home where she writes and publishes because she couldn't write. And she's on North Fifth, but on the other side. She's on the eastern side. And we are not the only ones that have this problem. There is a great number of neighbors who, when we get together...
One of our students is nodding her head because her house backs up to the...
It's horrible. I could not go into my pool this horrible hot summer. And inside is equally bad. And I really would like to hear, how did this come about? Why are we doing it? And can we stop it? Because it drives us all insane. And you guys are great neighbors, except for this band. The band, it's horrible.
I can answer a few questions if you'd like. So I was approached by Drum Corps International last year. I wasn't personally approached. A call was put out to superintendents in the region, Central Jersey region, to see if we would be willing to host these bands as they move on to competition. So I agreed, thought it would be a nice service to the community. We did get, I recognize that it's invasive, and I obviously have to take away a lot of what you're sharing with me now. We did also get a lot of positive reception. There was an opportunity for kids and adults to see the operation of these bands. We had 3 groups come, and each group stayed for a total of 2 days maximum over the course of the summer. Later in January, we had a group in July and then a group in August. It's not a revenue generator. It's a nonprofit organization, so we don't charge an inordinate amount of money to generate this revenue. It was more of a service to the community. And also to give back to these organizations. These groups are all volunteer organizations to help kids.
We can't make it a back and forth this way. I'm sorry. That's okay. It's just, yeah.
But I'll be glad to
that's
answer
okay.
additional questions if any arise.
My name is Lenny Bodner. I'm from 335 North 4th. I just wanted to continue my objection to it. I'm a physician. I'm frequently on call, and to be awakened at 8 a.m. by this loud noise is annoying beyond belief. My wife works long hours, frequently well into the night. The one night that we look forward to where we can get some sleep is Friday night, Saturday, and Saturday night, Sunday. And this we have again, we don't mind the band, the high school band, the football games are great, but this is is rude. And that's the best way I can put it. It's just rude to be awakened at 8 in the morning by this loud noise that the megaphones in the back of the house that sits on top of the stand is right behind my house and Helene's house, and it's just non-caring.
No, thank you so much for all of you for coming and letting us know. Okay. Thank you very much. So yeah, we'll absolutely follow up with Dr. Taylor, and you all put your names and addresses there so we can follow. Well, we don't have their contact information though.
It would be helpful
Yeah.
if I can have your contact information.
Yeah,
Did you write your name and, you know what, it would even be helpful if you give us an email address. That seems to be a good way to
Yeah,
communicate.
and then we can follow back up with you.
Yep, I'll collect that information from you at the end of the night.
Scott, excuse me, do we have an approximate amount of income that the district got from these groups? Do you know?
I don't know at the
Okay,
top of
not
my
a
head,
problem.
but it's nominal, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Because-
yeah, we'll have Scott get us all that information.
Because if it's under the shared services agreement, it's really a pittance, and then it's split between the toileting and the fee maintenance and the lighting fee.
Yeah,
So it's really small.
Okay.
And it would be undercut by what the expenses. I mean, I don't think it would
Yeah,
be. I mean, it's not like this is some great big money maker that we can't do it.
It was more of like a give back.
Yeah.
But look, all of your concerns are valid. I went to see these groups, and they're loud. They're 100-piece groups. They're semi-professional, so they know how to be
They
loud.
project.
And very intense. It's all volunteer. If you're interested, you can go to the website DCI.
May I?
Drum Corps International. You get a better understanding of what it's about.
I mean, they make a big noise, and if we hear them for 5 minutes or 10, they sound great, but I'm sure that to you guys, so I just wonder whether in the future, whether it's this group or another group, maybe we give them some very significant guidelines.
I would say from my standpoint, I think it sounds untenable, quite honestly. I mean, being somebody who's lived in the city, and I lived above a restaurant that every once in a while, normally it's kind of like what you guys are saying, right? Like normally you can handle it, where you live, there's some noise, you tolerate it. And then every once in a while there'd be a wedding and a DJ for like 4 hours. Then you're like, no! And you're like driven from your house and you go nuts. Like it's, hours and hours and hours of music on end is not reasonable.
May I comment?
Yeah, it's Right. Right. Yeah. No, trust me, I understand. I totally get it.
May I make an additional comment?
Sure, of course.
The hours are from the morning into sunset.
Yeah.
And it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so I think you spoke to Darcy the effect. My husband lived in one of the dorms on the river, and they wanted to test the effect of Route 18 sound on the students. So they put large speakers out on a boat, this is in the 70s, in the middle of the canal, and blasted music. And the students got another boat and went out and clipped the cord because it was driving them mad. Thus, we have the cover over Route 18 by the river dorms.
Well, I have to say, I appreciate the venue you're using to share your concerns. I know you've emailed me, but I've run into many people in Stop and Shop and Rite Aid, and you've been very respectful, so thank you for respectfully sharing your concerns.
Yeah, if you could just make sure you write down your name and address and state your name for the record, too.
Joy Kaczynski, I live on North Fifth also. And another problem is that sometimes we get a warning ahead of time, and there was no warning that this was coming up. So we just woke up with a startle.
Oh my God.
You know, if there's going to be construction, like PSC&G did construction on Fifth Avenue, we got a newsletter prior to it occurring, so we knew we can make parking accommodations. But the same thing, we would like that kind of respect to let us know, give us a heads up, hey, this is going to be coming this weekend, so we can make accommodations if necessary.
Right.
If you're going to continue this program. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we have to just let it be the person at the microphone is.
Like I live, my backyard butts the high school, but when you have the floodlights on, even those floodlights, sometimes they're on, or sometimes you have a 24-hour program, and sometimes a couple years ago you had a 24-hour marathon going on in the football field, and even that causes problems sometimes, because they have the music going on at 10 p.m. at night. And I know there's a noise ordinance, but they don't have to follow it because they're doing some high school program.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for coming
I
out.
promise to follow up in the next couple of days.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For coming. We appreciate it.
All right, so we are going to move on to unless, I'm sorry, nope, Keith isn't even back there anymore, so I guess Keith's not going to give public comment. All right, so we will move on to our board action items. Good night, everybody. So, Michelle, can you move the curriculum and instruction items, please?
Yes. Personnel is when my computer sleeps. Okay, I would like to move items number 1 through, sorry, still scrolling. One through 10.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? No? Seeing none, Linda, can we please have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Simorowski?
Yes?
Ms. Coleman?
Abstain.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Yes.
Ms. Pietrobono?
Yes.
Mr. Roslovich?
Yes.
Okay, Mark, could you please move the finance and facilities items?
Yeah, I'd like to move items number 1 through 28.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No? Seeing none, Linda, could we please have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Simorowski?
Yes?
Ms. Coleman?
Abstain.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Yes.
Ms. Pietrobono?
Yes.
Mr. Roslovich?
Yes.
Okay, and Judy, could you please move the personnel and communications items?
Sure. I would like to move items 1 through 7, strike number 8, and then move 9 through 19.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No, seeing none. Linda, could we please have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Simorowski?
Yes?
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes for all but number 18, in which I'll abstain. From 18.
Ms. McFadden Dinacola?
Yes.
Ms. Pietrobono?
Yes.
Mr. Roslovich?
Yes.
Okay, so that brings us to our board liaison report. Scott, do we have anything from the Municipal Drug and Alcohol?
No,
Alliance?
they haven't met yet. They do, I think, next week. No, I'm sorry. The next meeting is not for a little while. But no, I don't have anything from Josh.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so you'll let us know next time.
I will.
Michelle, anything going on with HPTV or?
I have not heard of any meetings being convened, so
Okay.
no.
Alrighty. Rob, Ed Foundation?
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I did attend the Ed Foundation meeting along with Scott on the 16th what was that, Tuesday. It was a light meeting, I guess I would say. Scott updated the group on a number of activities that are ongoing around the district. The foundation is considering a number of different options about their spring fundraiser, which will be, I think, well, they have not yet set a date as far as I know, but it normally is in May, sometimes June. I guess we'll be hearing soon. And they also talked about the fact that grant applications for their spring round are coming up due from teachers and staff and what have you, February 15th.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Rob. Judy, do you have anything for us from the Commission for Universal Access?
I do. They happily met on a Tuesday, so I was able to attend last week. Probably the only thing that really relates to the schools is that, I think I mentioned this once before, that the Commission for Universal Access, every time somebody legally parks in a handicap parking spot, half of the ticket, the cost you pay for the ticket, half goes to a fund that they have. And with that money, they spend that on different activities that would promote accessibility within the borough. And so occasionally somebody will come to a meeting with a proposal, and then the commission will vote on whether to, if they have the money, assist them. So two teachers did approach Tara, who is here, who is the chairwoman of the commission, and they just reminded everybody that if a teacher has an idea that they're looking for a small grant for something that does relate to accessibility, they need to just really write a paragraph talking about what they would like to do, and they can submit it to the commission for consideration.
That's nice to know.
Yeah.
Can we somehow get word out to the teachers about that?
Yeah, I'll follow up. I might ask you to give me some more information. I'll send you an email.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, thanks, Judy. Public Library, Ms. Fittipaldi's there tonight,
She's
yes?
there tonight, yeah.
Fabulous, very exciting. And we saw her, on Friday, which was her first day, right?
Correct, when
Right.
she visited Ms.
She
Coleman.
went to visit Monique when we had a training session with Monique. So second day on the job, she's already at a library board meeting. We like it. Okay, shared services. I've similarly not heard anything about that committee from the borough. Ruth,
We
Tara
heard
was
from
just
Tara.
here. Anything to
No.
add?
No.
Okay. Monique, do you have anything you know of going on with parents of students of color?
Well, I will say that they are having a meeting coming up, so I can do a little plug for a meeting coming up on January 30th. That's a Tuesday. Members will be meeting at 6, and they open to the public at 6:30. And they do have quite a few things on the agenda in the spring they'll be planning for. So, of course, they're welcome, open to all. Children are welcome. They're meeting at Bartle in the library. They also have coming up a book talk on March 29th, Thursday, March 29th at 7 p.m. And this is being done in collaboration with the New Brunswick Area NAACP and also the Human Relations Committee. I don't know if this was already discussed here, but they are discussing the book White Rage by Carol Anderson. Let me just make sure I have the author's name. Yeah, and the date is March 29th. So really encouraging collaboration between these community groups to discuss sensitive issues that I think we've been trying to grapple with and have more discussions with and dialogues amongst the community members about. So that's coming up, and we're really just trying to encourage as many community members as possible to come out and participate.
Great, and I think PostDoc is usually really good about getting the district flyers for that kind of stuff, so we can get the
Yes, I'm
information
sure they'll
out.
work
Is
on
that
that
all?
in the meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I'll just maybe tag on to that, that over, not this past weekend, the weekend before, I went and participated in a weekend workshop called Undoing Racism, which was just, I know Michelle's gonna be like, I wanted to go. It was amazing, and I'm so glad I did it, and it reconfirmed how important all the work is that we're doing as a board, and made me really realize how amazing it would be if we could bring that into the district, either for just start with just figure out how we can do that. So Scott and I and Monique talked about that a little bit the other day when we met last Friday. So I think Scott was going to kind of look into that in terms of maybe rolling that into some professional development that happens in the district. It's a really powerful way to spend a couple of days. And I would love to see it brought to the district. And in Montclair, I believe their whole staff goes through that 2-day workshop, which is pretty amazing. So maybe that's some outreach that Scott can do to the superintendent there. And interestingly enough, it was my understanding that it was Mr. Belande who brought that into Montclair, who was the interim, the interim that was had been slated to come here all those years ago, which was kind of funny. But not. So anyway, so that's very much on the radar for us to look into for hopefully sometime in the future, which would be fantastic.
I just want to add to one quick thing that they are also, PostDoc is also looking at planning, and I hope this is something the district can get involved with as well, the commemoration of integration here, right? So I know that that's going to be a big topic on the agenda coming up next week, and it would be nice to see what we can do jointly with PostDoc to commemorate that decision.
Absolutely. And I don't know, does everybody remember, I think it was before the holidays that Scott had sent to each of our homes, had delivered a manila envelope with all of the historical documentation about the desegregation order. So maybe we can really start a concerted, we should need to get, do you guys have it? Can we get it for those guys? Yeah, let's make sure that they have that too.
I'll email them. Is that yeah, I'm going to email you guys.
Or if you could print it and give it, it's so hard via email because it goes in different directions. Like that's why I asked for it to be printed. Like your head's like tucked in the computer.
I'm going to have Mr. Doddard deliver you manila envelopes.
They're like just different things slapped down and Xeroxed. I'm so old school. Xeroxed. Nobody says Xeroxed anymore. I don't say that.
At least you don't say dungarees like my dad.
But I would love for us as a board to start, and maybe we can, work that into just our, when we do our excellence and I can't speak tonight, I'm sorry, equity and excellence committee reports going forward from now, like all have that as a base where we're starting from. So if everybody can just take that thing out if they haven't read it yet and read through it, so we're all like starting with the same base of information, and then we can help to start to plan with PostDoc some events over this coming year.
So would I have that? Do I have that? How was that
You
sent?
wouldn't, because that happened before you got on. So you may have, I don't know if, I know PostDoc has that information, but Scott can make sure that you get a printed up copy of it.
Okay. That's in some of the articles, not the package that you sent.
Yeah, I'll have Susan we'll drop it off at your house. That's one of the perks.
Susan loves being the new courier.
Super fancy.
Okay, so Anne, do you have anything for us from Human Relations?
No, I know that Human Relations, the Commission is also very interested in commemorating the beginning of integration, or at least the beginning of legally enforced integration. That I'm not sure where their plans are quite yet.
So maybe
let's
that'd be
see.
a good thing for like everybody's next meeting is to figure out how we get all those pieces
Yes.
together, like all the different committees in town that are interested in working on this, so everybody's not doing it in isolation, but they're,
I think there's a Julie Luck who may be part of POSAC, and she comes to the commission meetings as well. So she should hopefully have her finger on the pulse of both. Can be a conduit.
yeah.
The other thing, so there's a lot of talk about that. I did not attend the last meeting on the 17th, but I have the minutes here. Let's see. The other thing, I guess there's an update on this decal project the commission is working on.
What project?
A decal, like a sticker. It's some kind of sticker or decal that will be available to stores, and it'll say something to the effect of "Everyone is welcome here." And I think Bartle students have submitted drawings that either will or may be used on the decal. I'm reading the minutes here, and it looks like there was some problem with getting it reproduced, but hopefully Bartle students' artwork, thank you, will be used. So soon enough, we'll probably be seeing those around town. And I believe that was the only school-related thing. Thank you.
Great. Mark, Board of Health.
Yes, the Board of Health did meet on January 11th. There was some discussion of money that they have that they need to spend or would like to spend, and there was discussed a meeting I missed where they talked with the students on the reps to the Board of Health and having them be involved with trying to figure out some programs that we could do in the schools to spend the money. The problem is the money is earmarked for anti-tobacco or tobacco education use, and we've done that already, and I think there wasn't any necessary desire to just do that over and over and over. So they're trying to figure out ways to decouple that money from tobacco-only education and put it into other educational areas so they could make it more available to the schools. And then the only other thing is I gave them the same discussion and talk about the heat, because that did come up, and what's going on in the schools and the heat and so on. Otherwise, there was not too much.
Okay.
Mark, quick question.
Yeah.
You know when they did the tobacco?
Yeah.
Did it also address e-cigarettes?
It did not. I don't believe that first one did address e-cigarettes. I know they've wanted to do that, and again, there's money. The e-cigarette tax, I don't know if it's called a tax, but this is anyone who wants to sell e-cigarettes in town has to pay.
It's like a permit or something.
Yeah, permit. It's $500 or $1,000, which somewhat has a discouraging effect, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But they do have money from that, but that again may be just completely earmarked. Whereas the other education was tobacco. But they're trying to figure out how to do it and what to do, and I think the students could be the best help for this.
Thank you.
Okay, Rob.
Could I go back for a moment?
Yeah.
Would that be possible? Haha, sorry. This is about POSOC, actually. I was just on the Facebook page, I was looking for the integration articles that we were talking about. I think some of them are posted there. And I saw that on January 24th at the Reformed Church, there's a training going on about school practices and policies that support immigrant families. Are you aware of this or part of it?
No, can you send me the link to it?
Yeah, I'll send you a link to it. I mean, that's something we should certainly be aware of. I'm not sure who's running it. It's advertised on the POSAC page, but I don't know.
I think someone shared that, yeah.
Oh, maybe it was shared
It
by.
was shared.
Yeah, just a share. So I'm not sure at this point, skimming it, who's running it, but I'll send that to you, Scott. I mean, it'd be
Thanks.
great to have somebody there. I'm not sure that I can be that person.
That's the 24th, you said?
Yep, yep. This is coming Wednesday, yes. How do we not hear about that as a school?
Yeah.
That's, blocks away from that location.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Anne, because we probably should have been contacted.
Well, we've already, put in place policies and procedures so.
I'd just love to know what they are going to be advocating for, because, maybe there are some tips for us.
Right.
Or ways that we can contribute to the discussion.
Yep, true. Okay, Rob, you have anything for us from the green team?
I do not have anything to report on the green team.
Okay.
Big meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
But I'll be there in case you can't make it. It's right after school.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a meeting tomorrow?
I'm sorry,
There's a green team meeting tomorrow?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. Okay.
So if you can't make it, I'm there.
Well, that's why you don't have anything to report.
Right?
There's a meeting tomorrow. Now you do. Now you can report that there's a meeting
There's
tomorrow.
a meeting tomorrow.
After school.
After school.
Okay, so next is me, delegate to New Jersey School Boards. So there is a delegate assembly coming up, our biannual delegate assembly coming up on May 19th. The deadline for resolutions is March 6th. So if we conceivably wanted to submit something to the delegate assembly, we could potentially do that in February if there's interest. We had talked about, we'd kind of bandied about the idea a couple of times of putting forward some sort of charter moratorium resolution, because at the last delegate assembly, there certainly seemed to be interest in that idea. It was just what was put forward was really pretty strangely worded. But I think if we put together one that was much more inclusive, much more, not dividing between urban, suburban, kind of stuff, I think it would fly, and it would be interesting to do that at this particular time, because this is when, while Murphy's been very definitive about, I'm finding the money for funding and I'm getting rid of park, when it comes to charters, he's like, he's been like very kind of middle of the road on charter. So if we could get the New Jersey School Boards Association to have to adopt the position of a moratorium on charters, that would put a nice little bit of pressure on there. So if there's interest, I'd certainly be willing to work with a couple other folks over the next couple of weeks before the next meeting, which is, I don't even know when. Do you have your calendar accessible, Scott? When's the next meeting? To craft something that we could put forward. Is there interest?
I would work with a, group of us.
Yeah, a group. I don't want to sort of be in charge of it.
No, that's fine. No, okay, but if there's interest in
Yes.
considering one and putting together language, then will we do that? Is it the 12th? Okay, yeah, so we can definitely do that by the 12th.
Absolutely, sure.
Okay.
Darcy, I ran one by you, and I can't remember, I'm sorry, what it was, a potential for the...
An idea?
Yeah, an idea about it was
Oh,
a while ago. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, yeah.
But
So if you think of it, just let me know.
I'll look it up right this second.
Okay.
And get right back to you.
All right, sounds
Before
good.
we finish, I hope.
All right, yep, so that's all I have for
phone just
the,
died.
for the delegate assembly. And boy, they're always so happy when I come to the delegate assembly with a resolution.
You can have the
It makes them
chance.
so happy.
Here comes trouble.
Okay, and so Rob, do you have anything for us for Middlesex County School Boards?
There are 3 upcoming meetings finally.
3?
Yes, there's one in February where
Feast or famine?
Jonathan Bush is going to give a presentation on legal issues that are currently surrounding school
You
boards.
mean our Jonathan Bush?
Our Jonathan Bush. There's a meeting in March, which will be a student recognition meeting.
Those are, okay, that we need to get some people together to go to. I don't think you came last year, did you? The big county-wide student recognition one?
Yeah, it'll be in Old Bridge, and it's on March 7th.
It's amazing. It's like a complete tearjerker because they pick, I think it's 2 kids from each district. It's kind of like the student spotlight on steroids. It's, kids who typically don't get recognition, but it's kids throughout the county, and you go home feeling like you can do anything in the world. Like, oh my God, if those kids can do that, then what is wrong with me? Like, it's absolutely amazing. So it would be great if we could put together a little table of folks to
I am
to
going to
go
be
to
there
that.
this time.
Huh?
This time I can make it, so I
Yeah?
will be there
Okay,
March
great.
7th.
Yeah, I think last time Mike was there because we had 2 high school, I can't remember now if it was 1 or 2, but we had at least definitely, no, I think it was 2. I think there were 2 high school kids that got, and it's just really nice also to see, like the board members there and superintendents there. They're like so proud of the kids that they bring. I saw the New Brunswick superintendent with the students. They all the families are taking pictures with the superintendent and the kids, and they're all proud. And it was just,
That's good stuff.
yeah, it's totally the good stuff. It's the why you do it stuff. So if anybody has that night free, Rob, could you try to get the information for that and send it out?
Yeah, right now
to
there's
us?
really no information.
Okay.
It's just Old Bridge Township High School.
And that's where it
March
was
7th.
last year too.
Yeah.
Does it have a date yet? March 7th?
Yeah.
Yep.
You said 3 meetings?
The last.
Oh, yeah, we did get an email about it. Scott just pulled it
Yeah,
up.
do you want to forward it to the board?
Yeah, we forwarded it to us. That would be
Okay,
great.
I'll do that momentarily.
It really was nice last year. Okay. And then there's a third one, I'm
The
sorry, I
third one's in
completely
May.
hijacked your report.
Yeah, there's still, the third one's in May, and there's still really no program for it.
Okay. Thank you. God, I got all excited about that. It really was fantastic, and all I could sit there and think last year was like, oh my gosh, more of us have to come next year. Okay, so that brings us to my president's report. As Mark alluded to earlier during his finance and facilities report, I've been kind of ruminating about this idea that we need to put something together to really take a more solid look at growth in town. I feel like every time I turn around or drive around a corner, there's something else going up somewhere, or there's discussion of something else is being built somewhere. And, you know, as all of these developments that are cropping up fill up and those kids start to cycle into the schools, I'm getting more and more nervous about our ability to accommodate those needs. And so we've...
Remind me what the...
demographic report kind of put a good number on
Yeah.
like, what our expectations were on the annually.
It was like, don't worry, the
Yeah,
school board.
It did, but I
Don't
feel like
worry,
there was
but-
like, we need to do a deeper dive into it. You
Yeah,
know, I
because
think there's a lot of good information there, but I don't know that we've really dissected it. And I want to use this as not just like us doing this in isolation. I want to do this in conjunction with the borough. So Scott and I have a meeting on, or I think we're still on for Wednesday morning.
Correct.
With Gail and Susie. So far, they've been, the last time we met with them, they were amenable to the idea of putting something like this together. So I think they were going to kind of go back and talk amongst ourselves, and we were going to come over here and talk amongst ourselves, and then put, good night, guys. And then, you know, we'd come back together this Wednesday, which is why I wanted to bring it up tonight with all of you, just to reconfirm, you know, that we're behind putting together this kind of like, I guess would be an ad hoc committee. I don't know what we would actually call this. Scott and I just threw together a name and put on the agenda, like not, you know, totally open to suggestions for some great idea for what to call this thing. But I think we need to start setting up, you know, if quarterly, if not every other month meetings with a core group of people who are looking at this, both from the borough, because you know, they've got more information about what's coming or not coming than we do, and what we need to, you know, what we need to keep our eyes on. And just kind of bringing up this discussion has made us really sort of drill down more into the enrollment numbers and look at them more longitudinally to look at, you know, where we've been in the last, I think we've been looking at like the last 5 or 6 years worth of data. Is that what you guys called it?
I did a 6-year trend
Did 6 years
analysis.
You know, so we can really look at see what that looks like. And now that we've got it compiled, we can just kind of keep adding to it as we move forward. But personally, I just feel like we need to establish that connection with the town, so we're, you know, we're not blindsided somewhere down the road.
Would this also allow us to compare the actual data, the actual enrollment, compared to what we have in our demographics? Okay.
The other concern we had, that the Finance Committee actually discussed, is that there are considerations for development that the demographer had no idea about. For instance, there's something happening apparently on River Road. I did run into a resident who's a friend of mine who lives there, and he was actually on his way to a discussion with the board of the borough about this particular
Yeah, so this
property.
is at the corner of River and Walter, where Walter dumps from the north side down onto River, that medical building that's right there. Apparently, there's talk of that coming down in a 100-unit thing going up there. So there's all this potential stuff going on that, you know, I get these little dribs and drabs just because somebody happens to forward it to me, but that's, you know, I feel like we should be getting information through more official channels than somebody happens to send me an email because there's a community meeting because they just found out about it. So I want to establish that connection now. I want to make it a really solid connection and not be blindsided down the road somewhere.
Yeah.
So if everybody's on board with that, we'll, you know, talk more about that with Gail and Susie on Wednesday, and then I'll report back to everybody next week, or at the next meeting, not next week.
Excellent.
Also, I don't know if this requires an ad hoc committee as well, but I know that...
2 in one night, that would just be...
I know.
Come on, Michelle. Let's not get crazy now.
No, I ran into a council member actually in Stop and Shop when we were talking about community broadband. And I know that we had discussed that years ago, but it seems like now with the FCC being who the FCC is, that it's more important than ever that we try to provide that from, a public place rather than privatized. So I don't know if the borough is at all on that topic, if they have any action there, but I'd like to keep in touch with them about that.
So I feel like you've had some recent contact with them on that, no?
And we had an email about Princeton, right, which is doing it?
What's that it?
And I know we had discussed briefly Princeton public schools, which I think are providing broadband in some shape or form to
Yeah,
students.
and Dr. Nikoja actually was in contact with the principal of one of the schools there. It turns out that they got a $10,000 grant from their foundation to do that, and then they offset the additional costs with the operational funds. Now, believe it or not, the mayor had already been on this with this idea in mind, had already done some research, and she emailed me information that Christina is going to follow up on with an organization that whose name I forgot, but it involved reduced costs, I think $15 a month access, free hotspot or Wi-Fi access point. So that's something she's going to look into as well. We're trying. And some other ideas that I'll share with the rest of the board that came up at a meeting the Finance Committee had with Dr. Nikoja and I, include reaching out to Rutgers to see if they'd be willing to expand their reach from campuses like Bush and Livingston to areas around Cedar Avenue, for instance, that might not have Wi-Fi access. So we're exploring that.
Yeah, I think we just should probably keep our eyes and ears open, because I know that many other cities around the country have been toying with that idea of providing it publicly. So, yeah, I'd like to see us do that too.
Unfortunately, the Princeton thing didn't play out, though. There's Princeton money in that,
Yeah.
I think.
Good night. Okay, all right, so I will report back to everybody at our next meeting about Scott and my meeting with Gail and Susie. Does anybody have anything for old business?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I did find my note to you a few months ago, and you said you wanted to run it by Jonathan. And
okay. Can you forward it to me?
I just did.
Okay, thank you.
I got all my devices working finally.
Yay!
So you have it.
Thank you.
It's late. It's late now, but look at it and see if something we might want to do.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Yes.
I don't know what to put in the minutes. All I know is that you were talking about a letter that was...
He was following up what he was saying before for the delegate assembly.
It's
an
something
idea.
for the delegate
Oh,
assembly.
this is not old
Sorry.
business then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, we just. All right, so does anybody have anything for old business? Nope. New business? Any business? No kind of business? Okay. Public comment?
Are we going to go into private session now?
Yeah, I'll do that
Oh,
when we.
okay.
Public comment? Keith, anything? No, you're good. Okay. So before we adjourn, we're actually, instead of adjourning for the evening, we are going to recess back into closed session. We did not get to, even though we had an hour and a half closed session before the meeting, we did not get to everything that we needed to get to. So we need to go back into closed session to look at our discipline reports and to discuss a personnel matter. So what we will do is we will recess to close to discuss those two items. We will come, personnel. We will come back into open, but no additional action is going to be taken this evening. And then we will reconvene on February 12th. So can I get a motion to recess into closed session?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Can I just do it all in favor, Linda? Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right.
Kyle. Hey, Kyle. So rather than you staying forever tonight, if you'd like,
Yeah.
you can, I can restart the recording, but we have to come back out.